Hello and welcome to the 2021 WNBA season. I'm Gabe Ibrahim alongside Calvin Wetzel, bringing you our no frills WNBA opening night live stream. That is the extent of the graphics that we have because it is just Calvin and I. No Shay Jennings. We're definitely missing our beloved producer here on the live stream, but we're going to bring you what we can tonight to preview the great slate of games coming up. A 4-game night, first night of WNBA season. God, so exciting. Calvin, how you feeling?
I'm feeling awesome. This music is making me already feel so much better and ready for the season.
I know,
we don't
right?
need graphics when we have this music, you know?
Yeah, we're abandoning visuals in for audio. So we're gonna have some audio. We really appreciate you guys joining us. If you guys want to drop comments in on whatever stream you're watching, because we're on like YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, through Periscope. So if you guys have any comments, let us know. We can throw them up on the screen. Let us know if you have any questions. But tonight we are going to be previewing, as I'm going to bring the music down so you can hear us a little bit. I'll bring it up at some point. I'll bring it back up at some point. But we're going to preview the night of basketball ahead of us because it is extremely exciting with the 4-game slate. And we're also going to preview the future of this season, the WNBA season, with some betting advice. And let me get our next graphic ready. Hold on, to talk about the first game of the night, which is Indiana. Oh, God, my handwriting's so bad. Versus New York. Indiana versus New York. That's what we have here as our first topic on our live stream. So Calvin, let's get into this game. First off, let's look at the odds because we're gonna give some people some betting advice. So on our WNBA minute, I told you guys to bet on the Indiana Fever because they were 2.5 point underdogs as of yesterday, and as of this morning. Actually, now they are 2.5 point favorites, and the money line is minus 142 in favor of the Indiana Fever, and that's largely because of the injuries to the New York Liberty. But Calvin, in this game, what are you looking at? If you were betting on this game, what would you do?
Yeah, honestly, I would have followed your advice at that line. I'm viewing this game as sort of, I would say, a toss-up with who's out there on the right. I think with full rosters, this is Liberty, and it's not that close, but they're missing Natasha Howard. They're missing Kia Stokes. They're very thin in the front court, are the Liberty. So I'm viewing this game as a sort of a toss-up, which means if you're going to give me 2.5 points for one team or the other, I'm taking that. So earlier in the day, actually probably like 15 minutes before you posted that video, I was tracking the odds, and that's when the line changed. I would have taken the Fever at plus 2.5 at that point. I'm definitely going Liberty plus 2.5 at this point. They still have, Sabrina is coming back. They're obviously, they added Benaja Laney, who should be playing tonight. And they're debuting in the Barclays Center, which I think is a big deal, even, with pandemic restrictions and everything like that. So I would honestly even consider taking the Liberty outright. I think it's pretty much a coin flip, but definitely with the 2.5 points.
So obviously I'm wearing a New York Liberty jersey. It's the only New Jersey I have because I bought a Mystics one and that one's taking forever to get here. But I agree. I was saying to bet on the Fever just because that was really good value, but I think I could definitely see Sabrina, taking over. We saw her do it last year in her very short time with the Liberty before she went down with that ankle injury, and she could just go off and have 30 plus points and have a near triple double. I don't think the talent on this New York Liberty team right now is such that they can't win games. I'm concerned about what they're going to do throughout the season, definitely, just because it's going to be disjointed for them with obviously the Olympic break and not having a lot of their players, and Jocelyn Willoughby going down with an Achilles injuries. Not only heartbreaking, but really a huge detriment to their team. So we'll see what they do throughout the season. But in this game tonight, I could see Sabrina just taking it to the Fever. I actually haven't seen the Fever's probable starters, but I'm really, really interested to see how that backcourt's going to work because doesn't it kind of feel like the Fever are not as sold on Kelsey Mitchell as we as a fan base are, right? It kind of seems like they're not ready to kind of pony up the money that it might take to re-sign her this offseason.
Honestly, I'm not sure what the Fever sold on and not sold on. I'm having a tough time figuring it out. But this is all due respect to the Fever. I'm going to slot them into 12th if we're making predictions this year. I just think the direction of this team, it's hard to find, what this team's identity is right now. What are they trying to do with some of the moves that they've made, over the offseason? And like you said, I mean, it sort of feels like maybe Kelsey Mitchell should be that piece they're building around, but maybe Ryan Howard ends up being the piece that they build around. Who knows? We're getting ahead of ourselves.
I mean, if they're 12th, they have a good chance. I mean, unless the Liberty are in the lottery, in which case they will win. And then does that pick go to who does that pick go to now?
They have their probably first the Wings, because I think all the first rounders end up going to the Wings.
So what the Liberty did in the Natasha Howard trade was they got a first rounder from the Mercury and rerouted it to the Wings. I think the Wings still have that. I don't think they traded that. So the Wings have the Mercury.
All funneled to the Wings at the end of the day.
Yes. All draft picks end up with the Wings. And we'll talk about the Wings because that's another team that's really in a weird place again as we go into the rest of the schedule. Let's move on though to our next one with our fancy graphic. Connecticut versus Atlanta on Twitter at 7:30 p.m. Let's see this line. Have you internalized all these lines yet?
I think so. Is this at 2.5? You got it pulled up there? I think this is 2.5.
It's at 3.5 now in favor
of did it change? Wow, that's a recent change. I think it was at 3 earlier, and then it changed to 2.5, and now you're at it's at 3.5. I can't keep track of all these line changes.
Yeah, no, it's very confusing.
Yeah, it's so they're so good at that. It's so fast. Sports books are. I'm going with a dream on this line though.
Okay.
I think there's no Jasmine Thomas for the Sun, and of course no Alyssa Thomas all year. They get Jonquel Jones back. I think the Dream definitely have the better backcourt without Jasmine Thomas playing in this game.
For sure,
no question. And I think
no shade to Brianne January. No trade, no shade. But yes.
Yes, and honestly, the Dream front court I think has potential. It's a little bit underrated. You talk about obviously they added Cheyenne Parker over the offseason and already have Elizabeth Williams in there. I think this is a team that with some of the off-court momentum that you talk about from Renee Montgomery taking over as part of that ownership group. And drafting Ari McDonald, who I love, even as high as she was drafted, I think that was a good draft pick. I think this is a team that, and we saw how the Connecticut Sun started out last season as well. They started at 0-5. It feels like the Sun, with all their veterans, are more of a late season playoff type of team. I feel like I like the Dream to cover 3.5 tonight.
Yeah, I like the Dream too. Honestly, this is a team that is in a similar situation, I think, to what we were just talking about with Indiana, where it kind of seems like, well, they might be already turning the page to a future that maybe doesn't involve some of the players. The Dream are in that spot, obviously. I mean, it's been a mess. It's been a mess. I think we're safe to say that's a mess in Atlanta right now. The president, Chris Senko, just got fired. Nikki Collins just left to take a job at Baylor. They don't have their interim coach has already said he doesn't want to be a head coach, which I think is a prudent thing to say when you're an interim coach. And they just seem to have next summer in mind where they can kind of reshape their team in the way that they want, which is what I saw in the Ari McDonald trade. I mean, the Ari McDonald pick. But if I told you, right, like, let's say right now I tell you the Atlanta Dream make the playoffs. Are you that surprised? Because you look at the talent on this team. We got Courtney Williams, Tiffany Hayes, Loza Williams, everyone you just mentioned. Cheyenne Parker is out, and Tiffany Hayes is not yet with the team. But I just think this team has too much talent to really be written off.
Honestly, I think there are 11 teams. Again, no shade to the Fever, but maybe a little bit of shade to the Fever.
This seems like
But
shade
I
to the
think
Fever.
there's some shade to the Fever. I'm going to say there are 11 teams that fit what you just said that I would not be completely shocked if they made the playoffs. I think 8 through 11, in my mind, are going to be competing, with a week left in the season, and at least will not have been eliminated yet for that 8th spot, including the Drew.
Yes. Well, we'll see. I mean, it could also go wrong for some of these. Like that's what it's been going. It has gone wrong for the Dream in the past couple of years. They just couldn't make a shot for like 2 straight years. I think maybe I'll change. I don't think that was Nikki Collins' fault, but I don't know. It could be, right. Like we couldn't really figure out what was happening with Atlanta. I think maybe this year just like shaking it up works, and having everyone back works too, because they didn't have their full team last year. But yeah, I'm interested in Atlanta. Obviously, we're disrespecting the Connecticut Sun, as we always are. We just want to let the Connecticut
capital
Sun,
CT.
Capital CT, we are disrespecting you. We expect nothing from you. You don't have any MVP candidates on this team. That perimeter defense is just shaky. We don't have any stars here that have like championship medal. Like, what is this team? No,
but a lottery team. Come on. At best.
So, all right. Well, that'll make the montage. I'm hoping to make the montage this year. Last year, I don't think I got on it, but I want to be on the montage this year. But with Connecticut, no Alyssa Thomas this year. Do you think they have another run in them to the land of disrespect, maybe the semifinals or the finals? Obviously, tons of talent. We were just joking. Like DeWanda Bonner's on this team. I think Jonquel Jones is going to be an MVP candidate. She was an MVP candidate in 2019. She probably would have been last year had she played in the bubble. I think she'll come back this year and be that MVP candidate. Do you think they have the horses, though, without Alyssa Thomas, who's kind of the heart and soul of that organization?
In terms of a deep playoff run, no, which probably means that they will, because that's what fuels them. But I think, Alyssa Thomas is the heart and soul, as much talent as they still have without her. And Alyssa Thomas was easily, I think, the biggest reason why they made that playoff run last year. When you look at how she stepped up her game and how she really sort of carried the team at some points. Jonquel Jones is huge, having her back, no question. And I don't really see very much of a regular season drop off for this team.
Yeah.
But I don't see sort of that carrying over into that postseason momentum that they had last year.
One, and the other thing that is a wind in Connecticut's face, so to speak, is that the other team just got better. Washington brings back one of the best players in the world in Elena Deladon, another one of the best players in the world in Tina Charles, in my opinion, another fantastic player in Natasha Cloud. So that team is now looking like a championship team that beat the Sun in the 2019 finals. As long as they're healthy, you look at the Aces, they got better. Angel McCoughtry is out for the season, but I still think when you add Chelsea Gray, you're looking at a better team there. And in the Aces, who beat the Sun in the semifinals last year, maybe Seattle got worse, maybe LA got worse, but obviously
Chicago got better.
Minnesota, Chicago, those teams got better. I think Phoenix got better. So I think that's going to be a little bit wind in the face for Connecticut without Alyssa Thomas, because it kind of it is. I think she's a bit undervalued still. Even though we're all in on Alyssa Thomas. I think everyone knows who she is. Everyone respects what she does. But to me, she was an MVP candidate last year. And she was going to win finals MVP had Connecticut won the 2019 finals, in my opinion, despite what Jonquel was just doing on the offensive side, because she drives so much of what they do. And I think that whole – I don't want to seem disrespectful with the capital CT to Jonquel Jones, but I think the whole of Alyssa Thomas is something that's irreplaceable. Whereas Jonquel Jones, you can more replace it, especially when other teams are suffering those same sorts of deficits with all their stars out in the bubble.
I agree. Yeah, that's the biggest reason why I don't see them making that playoff run is I think, especially when you get to the playoffs, that hole is going to become more pronounced because, when playoff experience matters so much. And Alyssa Thomas had, so of course, DeWanna Bonner has as much of that as anyone as well.
Oh, yeah.
We probably shouldn't be writing her off. She's how many playoff games, playoff series has she played in? And she can easily be that type of player who, pulls up from 30 feet, 5 times in a row and just puts the team on her back in a totally different way than Alyssa Thomas does. But I still agree with you that hole is just going to ultimately be too big to overcome when they really get into the grind of playoff basketball. Yeah.
So of course that means Connecticut's going to be in the finals. That much we know. Connecticut's going to be in the finals. I'm going to add one last piece of information to our graphic for our next game. Let's put it here.
This is the technology we've been craving.
I don't know how much better you can hope for. This is wonderful technology.
We have nice things.
We're going to Phoenix. Oh, here we go. Phoenix in Minnesota, 9 p.m. CBS Sports Network. You could even see the network and the time. Oh, that's Eastern time. I didn't write that down because I ran out of space. And Minnesota is favored by 1.5 points, according to FanDuel. This was the game of the night for me until I kind of saw wait, and if Collier's not playing, I haven't seen anything about Kayla McBride playing. I don't know if you have, but she just got to the States.
I don't believe she's playing tonight, no.
Right. So it kind of takes the wind out of the sails here, and that's one of the disappointing parts. And honestly, let's stop there to talk about it for a sec. It is a bit deflating to have, we have the draft, and the draft's really exciting and hopeful, and then we get to training camp, it's like, oh, all of these players are getting cut. And then all of the players get cut. And then a bunch of players have to retire. And then we come back into the season. It's like, well, not only did all of your favorite college players get cut, now a lot of these players are not going to be able to play because they were in Europe for too long, or they're going to be temporarily suspended due to the Olympics or 3-on-3 or whatever. So I don't know. Do you feel a little bit deflated? Because I kind of feel a little bit deflated about just this first part of the season. I think the season's going to be great.
I do. I feel deflated by that, and also, this is off topic, but also just the opening slate and the way it's presented. We're opening the night on NBA TV between possibly the 11th and 12th best teams. Tomorrow, to me, is the headliner opener. When you have 2 ABC games, you have 4 championship contenders. But I don't know why we don't have that tonight. Why don't we have the nationally televised, top-tier teams playing on opening night? That deflates me a little bit too, but I also agree with you that it's sort of a buzzkill to have all this buildup and then have almost every team, it seems like, has 1 or 2 very significant players who won't be taking the court because either they're still overseas, such as Nafisa Collier, or maybe they just returned. But of course, part of that is no one can control because of the pandemic. But in Kayla McBride's case, you just return and you have to clear those protocols still, or Jasmine Thomas fits into that as well. So it's really just sort of, it's a buzzkill, and I'm as excited as I am for tonight. I'm also excited for 2 weeks from now or 3 weeks from now when we have basically every star back on the court.
Yeah, and it's just gonna be a weird season, man. From that aspect, just like I mentioned the word disjointed, I think earlier. I think it's just gonna be that sort of year. Whereas last year, as weird as it was, once we got the format, it was there, right? It was like, okay, everyone's here. You can't leave. No one, I'm trying to think, was there any major season-ending injuries?
There were a couple people that left the bubble for Diamond Shields was personal reasons. She was sort of hurt anyway. Azurá Stevens did get hurt. Brittany Griner left the bubble. So it depends how you want to count that. But I don't think there was any sort of, torn ACLs or anything like that.
Once the players were there, it kind of felt like everything was together. And this year is a little bit different. I remember thinking last year, wow, this is great that we get everyone in at the same time because they needed to be. And now this year we're kind of back to the Europe dance, and hopefully the new CBA is designed to ameliorate that problem. A word that I like to use on this show for some reason.
The lawyer word.
It means to make better. It means to make better. It means to make less worse. But that's.
I think I actually learned that word from you on this show.
You did. Year. I said that, and then you and Shay looked at me like I made up a word.
I thought you did.
And I could have, but it is an actual word, ameliorate.
I checked. You didn't make it up.
So I think this new CBA is designed to ameliorate that problem and hopefully get these players into camp earlier. But it's still going to be this little song and dance for at least this year, probably next year, as well as we deal with these overseas commitments and players' salaries catching up to a little bit of their value. With all that said, let's talk about the Phoenix Mercury and the Minnesota Lynx. The line on this one, -1.5, as I mentioned, in Minnesota's favor. The money line is -104 for the Mercury, -118 for the Lynx. I don't know. It's not really good value. I think this is probably a stay away from me just because 1.5 is nothing and neither team really has great odds. I do really like the Mercury this season, though. I think the Mercury this season have a chance to win the title. Am I just getting a look? I picked them, so I picked them. I got really jazzed up about the Mercury, and I picked them on Locked On Women's Basketball to win the championship. Am I just a little too jazzed up on them?
All right. Well, let's. I'm going to agree with you and disagree with you on here. Okay. I'm going to agree with you first off that this is a stay away game because I'm very high on the Lynx, and if the Lynx have everyone, I'm definitely going with them. But like we said, no Collier, no Kayla McBride. This just doesn't feel like good value. I'm gonna disagree with you and go on the flip side where I'm actually a little bit lower on the Mercury I think than most people, and I'm higher on the Lynx. So I actually picked the Lynx, on the podcast earlier this week for my championship pick this year. To me, the Mercury, when I look at the roster, I mean, it looks very similar. I think particularly at the top to what we've seen the last couple of years, where they've sort of been a middle of the pack team. They've been playing on that single elimination day of the playoffs. I think it largely depends on a couple factors. Number one, Brittany Griner. She had obviously a very down year last year. Is she back, fully healthy, fully mentally refreshed? Do we see the Brittany Griner that we saw 3-4 years ago? She shot under 50% for the first time in her career last year, and she just missed a lot of bunnies, it feels like. So they need the old Brittany Griner back, first off. And they also need Kia Nurse to have – they basically need the same thing from Kia Nurse, the old Kia Nurse back, the Kia Nurse that we saw when she first entered the league versus the Kia Nurse that we saw last season, because that's really the biggest addition that they made, I think, to the roster. And if they get both of those things out of Kia Nurse and Brittany Griner, then yeah, I could definitely see them winning the championship. But I'm not sure if I see it. I think I see this team more in that 5 to 8 range, and again playing on the single elimination day of the playoffs, which may mean that Diana Taurasi is going to find me in the lobby later. But that's where I'm at on the Mercury.
I was about to say, let's clip this and send this off to Diana Taurasi. Let's clip the Connecticut part. Let's send that off to Jonquil Jones and DeWanna Bonner. And then everyone should go bet on those players because they feed off this. No, I get what you're saying, though. Feels like DT's got a run on her. And when this team was healthy last year, they were really good. I think they really found something special late in the year, and I know that's when Griner left the bubble, but I think she can come back, and she's in a good mental place because she was saying, this is the first time she's ever really taken a break, this is the first year that she's had that time to refresh and relax, and since college. So I think she can have a really positive impact on this team, and I think Brianna Turner came into her own last season. Now, the dance between them, and this is something I want to ask you, do you think that they can fit in together in that front court? Because obviously, in theory, the defense should be incredible. But in practice, it hasn't really been that incredible. So what do you think that Turner-Griner dynamic is going to work in the Mercury's favor? Or is that going to be more of an issue for them offensively than it is a plus defensively?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought up Turner, because to your point about the Mercury getting better at the end of last season, even when Griner left, that was really because of Turner's play down the stretch and the way she filled in for Griner and the defensive impact that she had. Defensively, it's going to be unstoppable with those two together on the court. And not only those two together on the court, but also the fact that when you rest one or the other, or if someone like Griner gets into foul trouble, you're going to be able to play 40 minutes with at least one or the other on the court. Offensively, it will be a struggle, but I think the backcourt has sort of the opposite problem in the sense that, Diana Taurasi and Skylar Diggins-Smith are both obviously much more offensive players, especially at this point in their career. And I think that they have enough with those two players on the offensive end to sort of get that offense over the hump, even if they have some spacing issues with Turner and Griner. So I think they'll still be fine offensively. They'll just have to rely on the backcourt a little bit more. But again, that and Brittany Griner has to start finishing layups again.
Yeah.
And I would like to see her stop fading away because she's 6'9". I mean, if she can start, dunking on everyone,
yes,
metaphorically, or maybe literally,
whichever she prefers.
Yeah, right. Then the offense is going to have no problem whether she's out there together with Turner or not. And if Kia Nurse can provide any sort of spark, of offense, which I believe she had 26 points in the preseason game, which means nothing because it's preseason, but it means like a tiny bit,
right?
26. So if they can get that, I think the offense will be fine. And I'm really excited to see Turner and Griner together. How they coexist this year after Turner got that experience down the stretch last year.
Well, one of them's going to have to be in the mid-range, though. That's the only issue. Is one of those players going to have to play in the mid-range to create space for the other. I do kind of hope they just kind of go away, though, from just the static post-ups for Griner, because that's just like it was really it just really like gunked up their offense when they did it so much. I think in 2019, it just kind of like grinded things to a halt, and I don't think that's not Griner being a bad player. That's just that style of offense is not as suited to the rest of the team as it is for her. I think if you kind of move on to doing a little bit more high-low action with Turner and Griner, it'll work a bit better. We should spend some time on the Minnesota Lynx, though, because, I mean, this is a team that when free agency happened, we were like, this is a team that we love to be a title favorite. Do you still think they're in your title favorites? Well, actually, no. Hold that. We're going to talk about the title favorites shortly.
Teaser.
But just heading in, what are the issues what are the things you kind of want to see, at least in the early going here for Minnesota?
Well, I mean, first off, how do they play, without Nafisa Collier? If you're talking about the early going, they're not going to have her back yet. And obviously she's, at this point, their best player and their most important player, without any shade to Sylvia Fowles. But also, on the topic of Sylvia Fowles, going down the stretch when they do have their full complement of players back, how do they handle Sylvia Fowles' minutes? Do they use Achanwa, who they brought in, obviously, to add depth to the front court to keep her fresh? Mm-hmm. And what does this team look like in terms of the X's and O's with all the shooting now that they have around Sylvia Fowles? I think we talked about this on one of our free agency podcasts, that bringing in Kayla McBride is going to be a toy for Charlotte Reed to play with in terms of all the things she did with Maya Moore, and coming off those screens. And obviously Ariel Powers, who they have, tonight for the start of the season, is a very capable shooter. You're talking about Bridget Carlton, who I believe is getting a start tonight, and Rachel Banham. Both had, those two had the best three-point shooting seasons in Minnesota Lynx franchise history last year. Of course, Duntis can stretch the floor at the big. So to me, I'm looking at, I think Sylvia Fowles, when she's on the court, is going to be able to absolutely eat, because there's no one that you can come off of, to double her. And if you do, I mean, they're automatic shooters all around her. But also, Sylvia Fowles is going to be playing probably closer to 25 minutes a game than 35, because she only played 7 games last year from the back end of her career, and I think she knows it. So that's sort of the dynamic that I'm interested in following with the Lynx this season.
I am too. I think one of the other things you mentioned, Duntis, like it could see it, right? Like her being the starting 4 here. And I think that might be the plan. I'm really interested to see what the plan is here. Like, that's just what I think when we get the full complement of players, that's what I'll be looking for as to, okay, how are they going to slot these people in? Like, are you going to put Collier at the 4? I think she probably long-term belongs there. And if you want Dangerfield, I think your 5 best players are probably Dangerfield, Powers, McBride, Collier, and Fowles, not in that order. Right. But those are your 5 best players, so you want them out there at the same time. And I just, I want to see that plan come together. Early on, though, Duntis, I want to see her working with fouls. Because if she can play with fouls, that's going to just give you so much flexibility when you're coming into a game against, I don't know, let's say like Connecticut, right? Connecticut's two big system. You're going to be playing against that with Duntis or Achanwa even. So I'm just looking for the big relationship around Sylvia Fowles in that matchup. You want to head to our last one here?
Let's do it.
Bringing up the graphic. Now, I do realize these are backwards probably for our viewers. I'm actually not sure.
They look right to me.
Okay, cool. Then hopefully it says Dallas versus Los Angeles, 10:30 EST on Facebook. Los Angeles is a 5.5-point favorite. It seems a bit high to me, but
it does.
They are. So the Wings are plus 210 on the money line, and that may be my bet to take. Obviously, the Wings are missing Satu Sabli, and she's going to be out for an indeterminate amount of time. She's temporarily suspended because she has to play. She is in Europe, and she has to play in the 3-on-3 tournament for Germany. So she's going to be out for a decent amount of time here, and that's why she's temporarily suspended. But these two teams just they're both so different that I'm not entirely sure why one team is favored by that much. Do you have any explanations for that?
No. Other than I think that sports books, we talked about this off air, they don't pay enough attention to the WNBA, which in general is a thing that we hate when media and people don't pay enough attention to the WNBA. But we might as well make some money off it if they're not going to do it. So I think, a lot of the early season lines are maybe a little bit too heavily skewed towards last year's results and last year's performances.
For sure.
Because that's, for the most part, all you have to go on other than free agency signings, which who knows how much they look at that. I'm sure they do. But to me, the Sparks, they lost 2 of their big 3. You lose Candace Parker, you lose Chelsea Gray. Obviously, they brought in some pieces with Erica Wheeler. They have Jasmine Walker and Arella Garantes made the roster, who ended up falling to late in the second round. They brought back this show's favorite player, Brittany Sykes.
Brittany Sykes,
gave us an eye roll on that one. And of course, Chene is back as well, joining her sister. So they have some pieces. To me, this team is a team that sort of extended their window and is no longer a win now team, though. I mean, they are trying to win now, but they're not in a championship this year mode as they were the last 2 years, especially with the Gabby Williams move too. They traded for her contract extension. She's 24 years old. I think the Sparks are set up, in the future. I don't know about this year. I think of the 8 teams that have made the playoffs the last couple of years. I see the Sparks maybe on the bottom end of that group. And in terms of the Wings, you mentioned they have no Satu. There's no Awak Kuyer either. She's not playing as well. But it's easy to forget that even though this team is rebuilding, they are sort of still in that rebuilding mode. They also were in it for a playoff spot on the last day last year. They were still competing on that final day of the regular season to get that 8 seed. This isn't a team that was, out very early, in the way the Liberty were, just like completely in the basement of the standing. This is a team that has some talent with Arike, Alicia Gray. 5.5 seems way too high for me. I'm with you.
Oh yeah, no, I'm with you too. The only thing I'm not with you on. So I get what you're saying, but you said they weren't. As I'm holding the marker to make the next graphic, they're in win now mode. This team, whether I think we may not think that they are a win now team, but they certainly think they are because they have Chris Oliver, Chene, Neka. Like they're not spring chickens over there. That's a vet team.
They're not in. I mean, they're going to try. They're not in tanking mode or anything. They're not in Indiana fever mode. I just don't think this is a team that feels like they have to win the championship this year in order to sort of validate the moves that they're doing. And it felt like when they had Candace Parker the last couple of years, they were in sort of a championship or bust mode. Like we got a window with Candace Parker, and we need to win the championship right now. And it feels like this team is going to still be there in 2022 and 2023 now in a way that maybe it feels like their window is extended and there's less pressure on them to win now, maybe is what I should say.
Without Candace Parker and Chelsea Gray.
Yes, and adding some of the rookies that they adding Gabby Williams. Some of these moves they made to get a little bit younger, I think. You're right, though. Christy Tolliver is a win now player.
I think they certainly see themselves as competing in the next couple of years. And frankly, I think the Gabby Williams trade, maybe not this year, right? Because Gabby's full season suspension, but going forward, I think Gabby Williams, that was kind of more of a win now move because they traded off their 10th overall pick and Stephanie Watts. You know, whether it
was a 2022 move.
Right. Yeah, no, for sure. I think it was a value move first and foremost. Yeah. But it's interesting to think about that. Quick question though. How good is Gabby Williams?
I like her better than most, I think. I mean, I'm a Sky fan. I've watched her. I know a lot of people are sort of down on her and maybe she hasn't lived up to the hype, whatever, where she was drafted. I mean, she's a versatile defender, which maybe doesn't necessarily show up in the stats, but I think it's very valuable. And she's still improving. We've seen her. She's still on the upward trajectory, and I think she will continue that, into the next few years. I don't think we've seen anywhere close to the best that we're going to see from her yet. I talked about this on another podcast I was on this week that on the Sky. Actually, no.
Oh,
on the Junior All Stars podcast with Eric Bugard. I don't even know if I'm saying his last name right. Sorry, Eric.
I did see that.
He brought up a good point, though. So the Sky, they've had this sort of deficit at backup point guard, right? And you brought up the excellent stat in one of your articles about how Courtney Vandersloot, more than any other player, affected their team's net rating based on when she was on the court and off the court. Their net rating fell basically from Aces level to Liberty level last year. Of course, they addressed that in the draft to some extent by drafting Shyla Heal. But I also think because of that deficit at backup point guard, at times they sort of forced Gabby Williams into this role that maybe was not her ideal fit to be that backup point guard because they used her a lot as a ball handler when Courtney Williams was not on the court. And it's definitely something she's capable of, but I feel like she's more, on offense, more of you can play through her, but more play through her, on the high post or use her as a wing. I think she does play better when she has an actual point guard sort of next to her, which, however long Christy Tolliver's window is, they're also going to have Erica Wheeler, who I'm pretty high on as well.
I am too.
Going forward in 2022 when they get Gabby Williams back. So I think the Sparks will actually be a better fit for her.
That's interesting. Because I think everyone wants her to be a sort of mini Candace Parker. But I agree with you. I don't think that's necessarily where she's best. But I don't know. I'll see about Gabby Williams. I think she probably got a pretty lucrative contract extension here with the Sparks. But we are going to miss her this year. She's out for the entire year. There's nothing we could do about that. So to recap our picks, Fever, Liberty. Well, we're taking the Liberty plus 2.5.
I'm taking Liberty plus 2.5.
I think I'm taking.
You with me?
I'm with you. I'm taking the Liberty plus 2.5. We should write this down. I just made a new graphic though, so I don't have the graphic board available.
I got one. I got a backup one.
Okay, let's write that. Yeah, Liberty give me a G column and a C column, and then we'll write down who we got.
All right. Did we disagree on any? I don't know if we did.
I don't know. The line.
C. All right. No, I think we agreed on all of them. Liberty.
Okay. So we got the Liberty plus 2.5.
Dream plus 3.5. Are you going with that one?
I do have the Dream plus.
And we're staying away from Lynx Mercury, and we're going.
Well, let's pay. We got picks on for Lynx Mercury. We can't.
All right. Let's disagree on that one then, just because it's boring to agree on everything.
Great radio. I'm gonna take. I'll take the points. Give me the points. Plus 1.5. I'll take the points there. When you're not sure.
Who's that? Mercury? You're taking the Mercury?
Mercury plus 1.5.
All right.
When you're betting advice. When you're not sure, just take the points.
It's true.
Although that idea has bit me in the ass more than any other idea I have in betting. My best advice.
Underdogs and unders, though.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No.
What is your best advice, Gabe?
My best advice is pick a team that you think is going to win. Don't fall in love with the team that has a good line. Pick the team you think is going to win, and then deal with the line after that.
That's actually better advice than it sounds like at first.
It hit me in the ass so many times. They're like, oh, this team, they're laying, like in football, like they're laying 14 points. Yeah, they're laying 14 points because they're terrible. They're like, don't take that. So in basketball, similar situation, like bet on a team you think is going to win.
All right. So I think the Lynx are going to win. So I'm betting on the Lynx.
And we both have Dallas plus. It's now plus 6.5. Did that go up while we were talking?
Plus 5.5. Is it plus 6.5 now?
It's plus 6.5. It went up while we were talking.
I'm taking that even harder at this point.
I'm hitting that hard. Yeah, give me Dallas, baby.
These are our picks.
What a beautiful graphic. Thank you, Calvin, for hitting the Photoshop hard. As we head into, I'm gonna put on the transition music. Oh yeah, this all whatever stuff that's on. I like this. This is a little bit. We had Vampire Weekend earlier. I'm not sure what band this is, but all right, we got Wings and Sparks. We already did that, so that's our 4-game night. But before we get into the WNBA futures bets that we do want to talk about, I want to bring up a couple new features on herhoopstats.com, and that's the graphic I made. These features are much more high tech than our graphics. So let's. I'm gonna hit the share screen button here, and then we can all check this out together to see, because it's some pretty neat stuff, man. All right, here's our first thing that you can do. As you guys can see, we're off to the right. Here is the research chart. So it's research is what you use to basically find whatever you want. This is a tool that I use all the time to figure out, okay, who had points per game, just various stats that you can toy around with and find a bunch of different things for. Now, what you can do is chart these searches that you do into a graph that makes it really interesting to see where these players have landed. So this graph that I have up now is for players that started 20 games and average at least 20 points per game in a season for the entirety of WNBA history from 1997 to 2021, the 25th season in the league history. Our vertical, with the vertical is the x-axis. I'm a lawyer. Calvin's a math.
Vertical is Y.
Vertical is the Y. So on the y-axis, we have points per game. On the x-axis, we have effective field goal rate. So then we look at who's been sort of the most efficient 20-point scorer in league history. And then you can go here and you can hover over, like this dot's way out here. This player has a 60% field goal percentage while averaging at least 20 points per game. And that would be Liz Cambage in her 2018 season, one of the most dominant seasons we've seen in the league, and one of the most efficient, as you can see on this graph. So that's the kind of cool stuff you can do on with this new feature on herhoopstats.com. And if you are enjoying our show or really any of the stuff you do, the way you support us, we don't do subscriptions to our newsletter. We are a podcaster for all our contents for free. The way you support us is by paying $20 for a year of this amazing stats page that I use every single day. Calvin, you use it every single day, I'm assuming. Whenever we're talking about WNBA, we're using our own site, obviously, but I think a lot of people use it as well.
Yeah, shout out to Aaron, by the way, and Morgan Reeder and whoever else contributed to that. Awesome stuff.
Yeah. It's a fantastic website, and they've made so many new improvements in the past year to this website to make it great. And you have this tool that, I mean, this is going to be popping up in a lot of my articles. So if you want to get in on that, it's $20 for the year. That's our first new feature here on the website. I'm going to show you guys the second one right now. I got to stop sharing my screen because I'm not high tech, obviously, with our whiteboard. Although I do make a lot I guess I am high tech. I just didn't do it for this because I was doing other stuff. But here's our second one here, and this is the schedules page, and it's not quite filled out yet, but when it gets cooking for real, what you're going to see is each day schedule. So here we have today's date. Wait, is today really the 14th? Oh my God, I said everything is the 15th. Whatever. Moving on. You can have the scores up for the 15th, and what's going to happen is you're going to see a predicted. We did this during the tournament. It was like a predicted margin and total. It should help you bet. It should help you give you a percentage of who's going to win.
And pull up the college one so we can see what it's going to look like.
Let's let me see if we have it for the tournament. Yeah, here we go.
So it's going to look like that.
Yeah, so this was for the national championship game. It gave Stanford an 83.1% chance of winning, and it had predicted the margin of 11 points and a total of 127 points. None of those things were correct, other than the winner. But still, it is a neat feature, and there were a lot of times where it was very, very helpful to see the margins and the predicted gaps between these teams, because if you looked at it, you would have seen you would have gotten a lot of help, especially with what we're talking about, with all the betting that we're talking about. This is a great new feature that, again, is going to continuously pop up in our articles. So that's our pitch for the stats website, herhoopstats.com. $20 for a year of stuff you're definitely going to use. Like, if you're a WNBA fan, you're definitely going to use this. Among stats websites that provide this much value, this one is the cheapest. I mean, I subscribe to a bunch of these things, and this one is the cheapest, and it provides the most bang for your buck.
In most of those features, probably 90% of the stuff on there is stuff that is not available on any other website. There's more and more websites that have, which is good. Obviously, WNBA website itself added a ton of stats 2 years ago. Basketball Reference has added a bunch of stuff, which is awesome. There's still a lot of features on our website at this point that are not available anywhere else. Which, if they become, that's great, because we want to see it grow the game. But at this point, that $20 gets you access to some exclusive stuff. Although I will shout out 538, by the way, who just debuted their WNBA predictions. The predictions we were just talking about that are going to show up on that right-hand column. 538 does have those now. So head over to search, just Google 538 WNBA predictions. They're going to get better as the season goes on, because they don't know about, their model doesn't know about free agents. So they do not know Candace Parker is on the sky yet. They do not know Elena Deladon is back, because they're looking mostly at 2020. But by the time we get a month or two into the season, 538 is pretty well respected. Their stuff is going to be pretty good. So if you want some more win probabilities, you can compare them to ours when we put ours up, and some stuff to use when you're betting. Shout out to them as well.
It is going to be a really neat to see the growth in this market, because once you start getting a lot of people interested as fans, you're going to get a lot more people interested as bettors, and that's going to mean that there's going to be more money involved in predicting these situations. Speaking of that,
it's going to be harder to win.
It's going to be harder to win. Now is the time. Time. Actually, 2019 made a kill. Well, I did not make a killing, but my friends who I told to bet on certain things made a killing.
You didn't follow your advice?
I kind of felt skeezy about it. I was like, I should be writing all the time and betting. And now I'm like, I don't care. Like, I'm objective when I write, because like I like all of these teams. I'm rooting for everyone. But I did feel a little skeezy about it at first. Now I don't really care. No, everyone. I don't care. We need to do something to make it a little bit spicy. Speaking of making it spicy, though, let's move. I'm going to share my screen again. We're going to bring up the odds for this season. These are the future bets, the WNBA championship bets that Calvin actually wrote an awesome article on. That, it was about the championship odds, but there's a lot of cool stuff about betting that I actually did not know how betting works. But for now, that's all going to stay on the page on Her Hoop Stats, herhoopstats.substack.com. You can find his article there, and the rest of our newsletter articles there, which are fantastic in my opinion. But now let's talk about our championship odds. These have changed a bit, right, Calvin, since you wrote that article?
Yeah, they're actually, I don't like them as much, because they're better.
They read your article.
More accurate. Maybe they did. I don't know. I like to think so. PointsBet, by the way, still has odds that are sort of behind. This is FanDuel. Okay. These odds look very similar to DraftKings, who have both updated them recently. PointsBet's still a little bit behind. So this has Minnesota Lynx at plus 850. I think DraftKings is plus 600, plus 700. It's pretty similar. They started out at around plus 1,500, I want to say here.
Mm-hmm.
They actually started out at plus 2,500, which is stupid. Doesn't make any sense at PointsBet. So I got in on that. I got some links at plus 2,500. They are plus 1,400 now, I believe, which is still behind FanDuel. So if you're a PointsBet user, go put some money on the links at plus 1,400. They also have the Sky at plus 1,000, which I think is a pretty good bet. Even at plus 850 for both those teams, I probably would still be willing to put my money down on those. And then the other one I'm looking at here is the Aces got better as well. I think they were plus, I can't remember now, plus 350 or plus 400. Obviously, they're now at plus 280, so the books are starting to realize that they might be the favorites as well. I'd still maybe put some money on them at plus 2,800 or the Mystics at plus 4,500, although that one scares me because of
plus 450, not plus 40.
Yeah, what did I say, 4,500?
Yeah, I was about to say. They're 4,500. We're nailing that, baby.
That would be automatic. Yeah, I would put my whole life savings on the Mystics at plus 4,500. Don't ever do that.
Don't do that. That's our other piece of betting advice. Don't do what Calvin just said.
Don't ever do that. Don't listen to us about anything. We don't know what we're talking about. Mystics at plus 450 though. I think it depends on Elena Delle Donne's health. That's the big question mark. We know she's not going to play tomorrow. If we get 90% of Elena Delle Donne this year, I think Mystics at plus 450 is a solid bet too. And then Gabe, you brought up earlier that when you get odds as big as plus 10,000, when you look at those bottom teams, I don't know about the Fever, but the Dream or the Wings, I don't know, maybe plus 10,000 is pretty crazy odds. Might as well take a shot, especially if you're on one of these websites who lets you cash out in the middle of the season. They don't even have to win the championship for you to make a profit, as long as they, outperform their expectations and those odds. If let's say those odds go from plus 10,000 to plus 5,000 in the middle of the season, well, now your bet is probably profitable and you can cash it out and make a little bit of money, even if that team doesn't win the championship. So I might look at the Dream or Wings as well.
I didn't know you could do this. Where can you do this?
Definitely PointsBet and definitely DraftKings. I'm not sure about FanDuel. I'm actually sort of new into the betting world as well.
I didn't know you could do it like stocks though.
So
I mean, because
I know a lot of websites do that, which is awesome.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to PointsBet actually as soon as we wrap this up in about 2 minutes. I'm gonna go lay some money down because crazier things have happened, especially in the last year, than the Dallas Wings winning the WNBA championship. I'm just gonna say that crazier things have happened than the Dallas Wings winning the championship.
And if the Wings end up being the 6th or 7th best team, you can still make some money if you're on a website that lets you cash out.
Throw $10 on the Wings, guys. Because if you throw $10, you're gonna win 1,000. That's great. I mean, that ROI is ridiculous. The one I really like though, because I already mentioned them, I said they were my championship favorites. I got to ride with them now. They're plus 1,000, the Phoenix Mercury, which I think is pretty good value too. Like that's what I'm always looking at when these future things. I don't like betting on things and then having to wait 3 months. That's why I don't do fantasy sports. Like I want to bet on games because then I can just watch the game. This I think is when I'm looking at this, I'm like, okay, can I throw $10 down and make some money back? Mercury can do that. Anyone below them, you can do that. I would say pretty much the Mystics. Everyone you mentioned was a good bet. But I am interested in this sort of stock betting. I didn't know you could do that. So that's our championship. You haven't actually picked the champion, Calvin.
Yeah, I'm going with the Lynx as my champion, especially when they get everyone back. I just think that they were already like a top 4 team last year, and they add Kayla McBride. They add Aerial Powers. They add Natalie Achanwa, who should help keep Fowles fresh. And Fowles is, reportedly basically healthy. I think she called herself 98% after missing a lot of last year. And of course, you have these younger pieces like Collier and Dangerfield, who should only be getting better every year. So this is my championship pick.
Yep, I could see it. I could see it, and we mentioned it. We could see a lot of these teams winning. Let's not make MVP picks. We'll keep that spice for a little later, because we'll be doing these. We'll be doing these shows throughout the season. I'm gonna bring back on our transition music. We're heading out. We're gonna play us out, whatever that means. We will see you guys very soon. I'm Gabe Ibrahim. You can follow me on Twitter at Gabe_Ibrahim. Calvin, where can the people follow you?
At CWetzel31.
I like this music, man. We gotta bring this music for various other things.
You can that's so much.
Make sure you follow Her Hoop Stats at Her Hoop Stats on Instagram, on Twitter, on any of the various platforms that you like to use. And we'll see you guys soon. And I'm writing something next week. Calvin, you writing anything next week?
Yeah, I'm gonna put out a little single game betting preview as well.
All right. So. And make sure you follow us on the gram, because we'll be putting we have some stuff in the works for the gram. So we really appreciate you guys joining us, hanging out with us. You got about 4 minutes to get to your computer and switch on to NBA TV. That's where the first game is going to happen. So we'll give you guys some time to move over to there. And you guys have a great one.